What's up, guys? Let's get into this. I don't know how many times I've tried to record this one, but today we're going to talk about manuals. First, let me say thank you to all the patrons. Just uploaded the June Q&A answers. If you're interested in hearing me answer the questions of patrons, we get some really good questions there. I'm going to make some of those public for regular YouTube viewers in the future, but I've been answering them for about a year and a half. And there's some gems of questions. The community over on Patreon is really great. So if you're interested in that, one-on-one video lessons with me as well, feel free to check it out. Also check out my brand Collage Skateboards. You can pick up the decks at www.clubdist.com. And June 29th, we will be at the Santa Monica Pier for an event that my friend Derek Ghost Burdett puts on every year. We'll have a booth, be selling some boards. There's also gonna be a demo of sorts. There's usually a mini ramp and like a ledge, a flat bar, things like that. And it's really fun. Other brands will be there too. So consider coming out to the pier on June 29th if you're in Los Angeles. So let's get into it. This one is about manuals. Took me so long to get to the point where I feel comfortable with this because it's a very difficult subject. And I don't want to ever make videos to you guys where I'm just like giving you the typical type of crappy advice that I got starting out, where it's like someone commented this earlier today. They're like, how do you ollie? Just go fast and commit, dude. Like that type of non-answer. It's unproductive and I don't want to waste people's time with that. The thing about manuals is it's all about balance, right? And balance and strength kind of go hand in hand. So we have to make sure that we're in a stronger position where we can hold our board. So the typical thing that I see when I see beginners trying manuals for the first times is they're standing all the way straight up and they try to lift their board up really quickly, right? And then eventually their tail just hits the ground, and that's pretty much the extent of it. Now, why is this bad? This is bad because first of all, when we're standing as tall as we possibly can, you guys who've watched my videos for a long time, or you guys who are just keen observers who watch skateboarding, you'll see that most people that have the best balance, and I say most because there's gonna be outliers out there, but outliers don't prove something to be true. They just exist in a different kind of space. But what we're gonna be concerned with, because we're trying to learn something and I'm trying to present information that's going to be valuable to the majority of people. So I'm not trying to teach outliers. I'm trying to teach the majority of people. That's why things are called fundamentals. For example, in boxing, you learn fundamentals, keeping your hands up, always protecting your face, right? Always turning over your hip when you throw a cross. But if you watch professional boxers, you see people who have attributes that allow them to break those fundamentals. It doesn't mean that the fundamentals aren't valuable. It just means that these people learned the fundamentals and also learned that they have attributes that lend themselves to executing in a different way. But I can guarantee you that they learned the fundamentals of boxing or whatever craft we're talking about first. So the first thing that we want to correct is we want to have our knees slightly bent when we're doing our manuals. And ideally, for myself, if I'm just doing a standard manual, especially if it's on something higher, I'm gonna have my knees bent much more than slightly, you know? And the other thing is, when we're starting to learn our manuals, we wanna learn how to lift the board up slowly. Because if you're bringing your board up quickly, you're not giving yourself a chance to balance. You're making it harder on yourself. You're rocking the board more, which as a beginner, you don't have the most control over your board in the first place. So you don't want to compound the issues that you're facing with something that's already difficult. We're looking for a spot, right? So when I've taught manuals, I've always taught that there's a balance point. So when I do manuals myself, and I will have some manuals go across the screen, I'm not the best at manuals, but I did kickflip manual, tray flip out the stage at the Santa Monica Courthouse. I have done 360 flip nose manual, nollie heel outs before. I've done kickflip nose manual, nollie inward heel outs before. I don't have footage of that one. It was actually funny. It was me and my friend Ramon Black on the manual pad at North Hollywood Skate Plaza, and we're kind of competing to see who could land it first. And I think we both landed them within a try of each other, but only time I've ever done that trick. But I'm okay at manuals. It's not my favorite thing to do because they're just so freaking difficult based on how they look. So over the course of my career, I just decided that the cost versus what I got out of filming manuals wasn't worth it. So usually when I do manuals, it's just for fun at the skate park, and I usually keep it pretty basic. Maybe a nollie heel nose manual, a nollie heel manual, a tray flip manual, stuff like that. Maybe a switch flip manual. I've done those in the streets as well. It's all about this balance point, right? So what I mean by balance point is there is a space where your body is in a specific position and you've lifted your board to a specific point, and that feels like your optimal point of balance. So when we manual, we're always searching for that point. And if in the beginning you're lifting your board up really quickly, you're never gonna discover that point. So what I recommend for beginners is to roll. Don't roll too fast, don't roll too slow. Have your feet spaced apart where your front foot is covering the first two of the bolts closest to the nose. So that means, you have this is your nose, your front foot should be covering these two bolts, maybe behind this line here, right? Your back foot should be in here, basically like this. And we're gonna roll at a decent speed and lift our board up slowly. I do have a visual that I filmed. And what we're looking for is we're looking for a point where it feels like we're doing the least work to keep the board up. So what I recommend in the beginning, because at first it's gonna feel crazy, you're gonna lift up your board and immediately the tail's gonna touch the ground. But through doing this over and over and over, you're gonna get stronger in this movement and you're gonna be able to lift the board up slowly. So what I recommend once you get there is start to lift the board up and don't let your tail touch the ground. Meaning if you feel like you're gonna roll back, lean forward and let the board touch down. And continue to do this. Roll, lift your board up slowly. Try to hold it. Try to hold it for a couple seconds. If it feels like the tail's about to skid, press your weight forward. Because when I do manuals, and especially when I'm doing a longer manual, I'm not simply sitting still. In the beginning I am, but once fatigue starts to set in, you'll notice if you've seen people do longer manuals, they're rocking back and forth, rocking back and forth. It's a constant fight with the board. Now you're not gonna do this in the beginning because you're only seeking a 3-second manual. 1 1,000, 2 1,000, 3 1,000. That's your manual in the beginning. But once you get more used to these manuals, you're gonna use that. So once you're able to lift your board up and hold it for 2-3 seconds and then put it down, the next thing is you're going to go over to a fence, to a wall, to something like that, because presumably from rolling and lifting your board up and holding it, and remember, your knees are bent, you want to keep your arms up. Your arms are very important for manuals because this is a balancing act. And just like people walking on a high wire, you need your arms to balance, right? You can't have your arms at your side. Not gonna work. Maybe in the future, like I talked about earlier, how people defy fundamentals once they've mastered those fundamentals, maybe you will be able to. But in the beginning, you're not gonna be able to. And if you try to learn that way, you're simply making things more difficult for yourself. All right, Bentley, you stay here and don't get noisy. So look, presumably now, from lifting and holding for a few seconds at a time, you're gonna be able to find that spot. You need to be actively paying attention to where the board is when you're able to hold it up. Everyone has this point. It's different for everyone. So I can't tell you where yours is. It's a process of discovery, and by skating and doing what I've outlined before over and over again, you will find it. Once you've gotten here, now you wanna go over to that fence. Now you wanna go over to a wall. You wanna hold your hands on top of it so that you can balance. You wanna get into that bent knee position, and you wanna lift your board up slowly and find that spot. Find the same spot where you were able to hold your board up for 3 seconds. And then you wanna lift to that spot slowly, and then you're gonna let go of the wall and hold as long as you can. But I don't want you to allow yourself to fall down or fall backwards. When you feel like you can't hold it anymore, grab again, Don't let your board touch the ground. Get back into that spot, let go again, and hold. And I want you to do this over and over and over again, because we're conditioning ourselves to find that spot. Because the next step is for you to be able to ollie and land in that manual spot. And the only way you're going to be able to do that, the only way you're going to be able to ollie into that spot is if you know where it is and you've repped out finding it over and over and over again. For me, for myself, with a basic manual, I can do it pretty much every try just because of experience, just because I've done so many of them. I know where my point of balance is, and it's like second nature for me to ollie and find it. Doesn't really matter how high it is, although I will say manualing across something that's just below waist height is a lot easier for me than manualing on something that's just below knee height. The lower it is, the harder it is to a certain extent, and the same is true with height. The higher it is, the easier it is up to a certain point. Once you get above waist high, I have to be so crouched for that manual that it's very difficult to hold for any long period of time. That's why like the kickflip manual tray flip out on the stage at the courthouse was difficult for me at the time. That actually took me 2 trips to the courthouse to do, but I wasn't doing very many manuals at the time, and I was also getting shoes from a really horrible company whose name I won't mention, but the shoes were extremely slippery and they didn't aid in me skating the stage very well. Skating the stage the last time at the courthouse in Converse, it was amazing to me how easy it was to skate with in Converse. And also another time I did a front tail kickflip across the stage, the curb part, and that was very easy when I was getting shoes from Puma and skating the Puma suedes. But I was skating a now defunct skate shoe company, and the shoes were just manufactured horribly. But the shoe manufacturing is a difficult thing, because if you're not ordering tens of thousands of them at a time, you don't have much oversight over the manufacturing process, and those Chinese manufacturers will just give you like off-the-shelf stuff that looks like the renders that you've sent them, and you don't, unless you have an endless deep pocketbook, you're not going to have the funds to go and do quality control. So no fault to the shoe company. I know how difficult a business it is, but once we're able to hold ourselves up on the fence, our next step is to ollie into that manual position. And same thing, we're going to go a little faster than we went when we were just lifting up and rolling, because you're going to lose some of your speed when you ollie and land back down on the ground. The tip is we're only trying to ollie about this high, so a couple inches off the ground. And keep your knees bent, bend your knees before you ollie, and try to propel yourself forward with it as opposed to just ollieing up and coming down. Now, if you're not in control enough to control your ollie and propel yourself forward, don't worry about it too much. You'll get there eventually. And we want to ollie and land down in this position and hold it for first a second, 2 seconds, 3 seconds. And by now you should be getting an understanding of where your spot is, how to hold the manual, because holding the manual, if you go watch Daewon's song, he's rocking his board side to side. It's rocking up and downward. And this is what's required for you to hold on to a manual. I don't recommend you having your trucks extremely tight for your manuals. Medium to loose is ideal for manuals. I learned to manual well with loose trucks, which kind of seems crazy to me now, because I feel like my medium is optimal for manualing now. But at the time I was skating them loose. And when you're skating loose trucks, you get a little bit of leeway from when your wheel hits whatever you're landing on top of to when you have to set into that rigid, balanced position. So once you're able to do this on the ground, it's time to take it up. And I recommend something about a curb height for this. You're simply going to ollie up onto the curb and catch that manual position. And one thing that I'll say is, it's a little bit easier when you're ollieing up on something to manual. But the reason I say to learn it on the ground first is that it really helped me with my control, having to land back down where I pop. Because when you ollie up to something, you're not having to hold that bent position for as long, and you're not dealing with gravity pushing you down as much. So if you go straight to that, you'll notice that like you're not going to get the balance benefits. And then when you do try to manual just ollieing up and landing on the ground, you're going to have issues. So I do recommend you starting by lifting up the board, then going to a fence and holding on to it, finding your balance point, making sure your knees are bent, letting go of the fence, holding it as long as you can, and just when you're going to fall, grab the fence and prevent your board from falling, rock back into place, do it again. Do it again. When your legs get tired, stop, take a break, do that over. Then go back and start rolling, ollieing, landing in the manual, and holding it. Now, one other thing that I didn't touch on is your body. So when I manual, I am tensing certain parts of my body to hold in place because it's hard to stay still. So the first thing that I'm going to tense is my biceps, right? My arms are usually out like this, and I'm tensing my biceps, right? So it's like you would be flexing if you're here, but you're out here. The other thing that I'm flexing is my core. I'm gonna tighten down my core. The next thing in the chain that I'm tightening is my quad muscles. I'll be activating my calves a little bit, and then all the movement will be taking place in my ankle. I'll be using my ankle, pushing the board up and down to hold, up and down to hold, up and down to hold. And all of that is important in holding the board in place. So manuals are pretty complex. That's why they're usually pretty difficult for people to learn. But once you're ollieing onto something that's a curb height and you're able to manual, that's when you want to start focusing on holding. And that's when tensing up all of these parts is going to come into play. And there's a lot of other strategies too for longer manuals. I used to skate. When I first got on WarCo skateboards, there was a team member named Damian Loud. And Damian Loud could manual forever. And he would manual as long as he could straight. And then once he lost all his speed, he would rock from side to side to pick up more speed, starting with his shoulders. And he would manual all the way around the skate park. And sometimes he would take laps around the skate park using this method. His trucks were very loose, by the way. And that gave him the ability to rock from side to side. That's a tactic you might want to think of. Another one is, like I've mentioned, the rocking up and down, rocking up and down. Sometimes it's easier to keep balance this way. And I've talked about sitting in the bicycle position before when you're sliding tricks. And you're doing a version of this with your manuals, except you're not sliding forward, you're rolling this way, but you're still parallel with your board. You're still seated in that bicycle position. You're tensing up the parts of your body that I mentioned, and you're looking at your feet. That's another very important part of the manuals. You gotta look at your feet, especially in the beginning. And next, you're gonna wanna try nose manuals. Those are a little bit different. Those are, in my opinion, easier. Like when I go for holding a manual for a long time, usually I go for a nose manual first. I don't know if that's just me or if there's other people who feel this way, but nose manuals were always easier for me. It could also be because I learned to manual first. So learning the nose manual, I already knew the mechanics, but I've just always had a much easier time with nose manuals and nose manual tricks than with manual tricks. And it might also be because I'm so afraid of leaning forward and my nose hitting the ground. Because when your tail hits the ground on a manual, that's just it. When you nosedive on a nose manual, you might fly forward. It's happened to me quite a few times. So it could be any number of those factors. But once you get this basic thing down, you're going to want to start flipping into your manuals, like a kickflip or a heel flip into your manuals. Another one that's good to try after you can kickflip manual or heel flip manual is a switch frontside 180 to manual. I used to have a lot of fun with those, and then eventually I did switch 180 to manual and then backside 180 out of it. Your half cab manuals. Later I learned like switch frontside flip to manual. I even did way back in the day a switch big spin heel flip to manual down a downhill manual pad. Yeah, it's just all sorts of places you can take this, and it's gonna seem impossible at first, but if you go through this methodically the way that I kind of laid out the process, it will start to click for you. If you have any questions about anything that I mentioned here, you can ask me down in the comments. I will answer some of those. And you know what? Before I go, I gotta get rid of the dog. But let's pick one of you guys to give a set of wheels away to. All right, so electricity fraud, hit me up. You have won the giveaway. You ride 52 millimeter wheels, so you are going to get a set of wheels. Everybody else, thank you for watching. I am going to be doing more giveaways in the future. I think I'm going to give away a set of Ace trucks pretty soon, so stay tuned to the next video for that. And thank you guys for watching. I hope this addresses like a beginner's standpoint for manuals. This one was like giving me grief because for some reason it's been difficult for me to articulate what I'm doing for manuals because I don't do them that much, and also I had to kind of remember what my process was for learning manuals, because I remember it being kind of grueling, and I would start learning them and then I wouldn't want to do them anymore. And then at some point I kind of buckled down and I was like, I need to be able to kickflip manual. I need to be able to kickflip nose manual. So hopefully this helps you guys. And if you want a specific nose manual video in the future, let me know, because they are pretty different, even though the nose manual is easier for me. Thank you for watching. Consider joining the Patreon. Check out Collage Skateboards. Buy our decks from clubdist.com, and peace.